Hello, listeners. Welcome to the Strength and Recovery Podcast. I'm your host, Jaye Rodenbush, the Director of Alumni Engagement for Recovery Centers of America. Today, I'm sitting down with Peter Gregory. He's our newest coordinator from Westminster, Massachusetts. And we're also pleased to have with us Marty Dunphy. She is our coordinator from Danvers, Massachusetts. And we are out in a country setting today. We are at our Westminster property. This is a former ski lodge in Westminster, Massachusetts. A beautiful country property, I guess you could say. Tell us a little bit about this place, Peter.
Sure. It's a former inn and a lodging for the mountain right up the street, Wachusett Mountain. And from what I understand, I was never a part of it, but they used to have people stay here and commute right up to the mountain and go skiing all day, and then come back here and stay at the little homes around the property.
It is absolutely beautiful. This is just several buildings and a very serene atmosphere. It's just gorgeous out here.
It really is. A little colder than other parts of the state. You get up into this mountain region, you can feel the difference.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to let you pronounce that mountain because I would show right away that I am not from Massachusetts. This is, where are we located? We're about 30, 40 minutes from...
A half hour from Worcester.
I still say Worcester.
North of Worcester. Right near New Hampshire, not too far. A little north is New Hampshire.
And by, you guys would say...
Wachusett Mountain.
Okay, and you guys would say near Leominster, but it looks like Leominster if you're from Indiana, like me.
There's some unique names around here. You got to practice them. Leominster.
Yeah.
Gloucester,
which is spelled Gloucester.
Gloucester.
Yeah. So it's not very Hoosier friendly. I could say that for pronunciation. But very friendly to anyone pursuing recovery. I just think this is a beautiful spot. And Marty, you're from Danvers, which is a little closer toward Boston area.
Correct.
And tell us a little bit about that facility.
It's a beautiful facility. It's different than the Westminster facility, and the Westminster is very country, and our RCA facility in Danvers is like a beautiful 5-star hotel. It's gorgeous. It's welcoming. It's it makes our patients feel really what's the word I'm looking for? Like they really deserve to have this kind of beautiful treatment, and it greets them with excellence.
I think what is remarkable about Danvers and stands out right away is the artwork on the walls.
Yes.
You go in there and you just feel like, wow, it's like museum.
It is very much,
and it's just gorgeous, very upscale, and just a beautiful setting as well.
Yes.
So, thank you guys for being with us. Want to talk a little bit about recovery today, and I think a great place to start is just what's your connection to recovery and the recovery community? What makes you passionate about working in recovery? You want to start, Marty?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. Yeah, I think it's interesting because I never would have expected that I would be in this field.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't something that I had thought about in my growing up, but as my life went on and I realized that my own use of substances was taking over my life, I got kind of catapulted into this field. So I came into recovery myself 26 years ago.
Wow.
And it's amazing. So I'm very, very passionate about this. I started in this field and I've been in this field for the last 25 years. And I feel like when I see the light come on for some other person that is really working on their recovery and just starting out in here, and they start to get that light in their eyes, I think that's what really stokes my passion. Because when you see that happen, you get that feeling.
And I want the listeners to know you and your personality a little bit because you have, I'm going to call it recovery hair. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Okay, tell us about the hair. I want to know.
All right. I have purple hair.
And purple is significant.
Purple is the color of recovery.
Absolutely.
And it's funny, I went purple about 3 years ago. I was going to do it for just a couple days, and it just became part of who I am. And now it's like, that purple lady, I also carry a can of lavender spray with me everywhere I go.
Oh, my goodness, that's so cool.
When I do my groups, everybody, where's the spray and the tea and all that stuff. So it's,
And Marty is an incredible lady, and she has 2 cats, Finn and
Ira. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And just an amazing person and a real advocate for our alumni. And I'm so pleased to have you on the team.
Thank you.
And Peter, tell us a little bit about your connection to recovery.
Sure. Somebody had an idea that it would be good for me to go to an AA meeting when I was 16 years old.
Wow.
Which, God bless him for foreshadowing my future and my issues to come as far as needing recovery. So, I'm sober 22 years. I lived in Maine when I got sober. I had 2 friends from my adolescence that were sober, that were a big part of my life and the support for me to get sober. And I worked at a boarding school up in Bath, Maine, and I was able to start groups up there and work with adolescents in recovery and coordinate rides to meetings and do speaker commitments with some other alumni, things like that. But for my personal recovery, working here in this field has been so rewarding. Just like what Marty was saying, when you see that look in someone's eye where they start to get it and they start to understand what they need to do in order to maintain sobriety and how we at RCA can help facilitate that in so many facets is really powerful. So this breathes air for me working at RCA and working with others, trying to help people get healthier.
We were just in some training sessions today, and we were sitting around, and we just started talking about early recovery. We started talking about coping skills, and we said, wow, this is great. Let's turn on the tape and do a podcast right now. And so I love that it was spontaneous, and I think it's a really critical thing to talk about, because I think, especially in early recovery, there's this fear of boredom. As a society, we are so plugged in. We are never disconnected, right? We have social media, we have podcasts, we have regular media, and if we're not in a conversation, we've got our earbuds in. We are constantly connected to some sort of information source and when we don't have that, and when there's no substances involved and we're just alone with our own thoughts, that can be a really scary place to be, especially in early recovery. And so talk to us a little bit about coping skills. What are your suggestions? How do we get through those moments that can be so anxiety provoking in early recovery?
One of the things that I've seen is, and I've talked to our patients about, is that when we're using boredom, actually to early recovery is just like a lack of chaos. So it's about trying to fill that spot, trying to, it's real boredom is about listening to a speech from a 100-year-old person, blah, 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 blah. But really what we're looking at is a lack of chaos. So for me and for a lot of our patients, that's what it was. And I think that just one of the things that was suggested to me early on and really works is that, literally taking that moment. We talked a little bit about building hours earlier, but I think taking that moment, taking a shower, the amount of time it takes to get undressed, take a shower, get out, get dried off, that really cuts a lot of that anxiety down. Yeah. So I think that's one coping skill.
I think can you talk more about that chaos?
The chaos.
Do people become addicted to a chaotic life?
I think so.
And the toxic relationships and all of that goes into it?
Absolutely. I think that's really true. From what I've seen and what I've heard from our patients too, is like, well, I used to get up and I used to run from my drug, or I used to run to the store, or I used to have to lie to get this and get that, and that's a lot of work, and it's
the
a lot of
adrenaline that goes with that.
Yeah, and then when you stop using, you realize how much time it took to do all that, and how much of the chaos surrounded it.
Peter, do you find that to be true as well?
And the energy, that it takes to do that. Yeah, it's amazing. It's that's a great point you're making. The chaos, living in the chaos, being used to the chaos, understanding you're getting good at the chaos. Meaning, you learn certain skills with deception.
And there's a certain amount of ego boost that comes with, like, I'm riding this wave that other people couldn't handle.
It's, lying to cover up the lies of the lies, and getting really slick about it, and that can be the scary piece. But my big thing is preparing ourselves for the next day, or for our sobriety. I mean, early in sobriety, let's not just wait for something to happen to us. Let's prepare ourselves to activities or things we can do in order to be productive for the next day, especially thinking a day ahead.
So how do you do that when you're living a day at a time?
Good point. Well, stay in the day for sure, but I thinking, just like the end of the night, when you're thinking about preparing, remember this is an outline of recovery for support, is knowing where your meetings are going to be for the next day.
Oh, that's good.
And not being afraid to put down 3 different meetings if you need them, or 4. Or a friend of mine who early recovery was going to 5 a day, which whatever it takes, it doesn't matter as long as it's helping you in your recovery. And I told you my other thing, which I help people in the 12-step groups here, is the IPSES, the IPSES.
Okay, go slow with us.
Yeah. I learned this.
The IPSES.
IPSES. So the I is intellectual. So if I were to sit down with a group and we all would write down things that stimulate the intellectual or the intelligence in us, we would talk about reading, we would talk about documentaries. Could be chess. It could be.
So you're saying you've got this code, IPSES. What does IPSES stand for?
Yep, sorry. Intellectual, physical, emotional, spiritual, and social.
Okay. Thanks. And so you're going to try to cover, have some sort of that represented in an everyday?
Exactly. Like if you could do even 30 minutes a day in each one of those categories, that's 2.5, 3, that's a big chunk of time. But the idea is to have the variety of those in each one of those sections, intellectual.
So intellectual could be
reading, now it's listening to a book,
or a podcast,
or chess. It could be a lot of things, documentaries. Which I really love personally. I didn't have a prepped list, but there's a lot of different things. Sudoku, or that could be one, or various activities.
And then the P is?
P is physical. Like, hey, you know what? It's part of our recovery. Let's stay focused on getting healthy, and I'm going to walk for 45 minutes every other day or every day.
And if you can't do 45, you can do 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Just something is down there to get your mind moving beyond sitting there static, waiting, reacting to that chaotic thought process that happens early in recovery.
So, go back.
Or at physical, well, now we have spiritual. Spiritual, obviously. AA meetings could be one. Big book readings, 12-step groups, church, synagogue, anything to yoga, walking through the woods. It could be a lot of different things for that. Emotional is a big one. In the guys groups we struggle writing these out, but not just watching the E.T. movie or something. But reading, could be reading a book. It could be writing a journal. It could be writing a letter. It could be
just something to acknowledge your emotions.
To acknowledge our emotions. And
that's good.
The last one's social, which is a really, really important thing in sobriety, because a lot of us are in early sobriety are like, I'll never have a life again. I'll never be able to hang out with anyone. And I wish people could see the other side to that, of how much more social you can be and how much healthier and how much fun you can have.
Yeah.
Whether that's movie nights, whether that's cards, whether that's sporting events, which I love, whether that's going to the meeting after the meeting, whether that's bowling night with a bunch of people in sobriety. There's so many things out there that I wish people could see the results of before it happens, because it's amazing. It would inspire us even more to stay sober.
Yeah.
One of my sayings is, the party isn't over just because you're sober. And that's been a big hit. And they look at you, the patients, when you say that to them, they look at you like, I don't believe you, really. And so we talk a lot about that. It's like, I didn't get sober to be miserable, and there's so much fun to be had. And they're like, why are you always smiling? I'm like, oh, well, because it's easier to do that than to frown, but it's basically because from the, all the things that you just talked about, the spiritual, putting all those in balance, it gives you just a place of well-being, so, yeah.
That's a good point.
Talk about the silence for a moment. And how do you get to a point where you've run this chaos? Maybe you were addicted not only to the substance, but also the lifestyle that come along with it. And now you have these quiet moments, and you got to deal with those emotions. You got to deal with maybe some hurt. You got to deal with some pain. What are some coping skills for those quiet moments? A couple I think would come to mind for me. One of the first things that I got help with around that was praying, and not necessarily religiously, but just, trying to identify and connect with a power greater than myself, so that I didn't feel alone when I was quiet. So I didn't feel like I was like by myself when I was quiet. I think that was what I was most afraid of with silence, is, just like, who else is there, or what else is there? Eventually, I was able to start a really short meditation. This sounds scary to people. They kind of freak out, but it's a meditation that I get in the morning, and it's got a little bit of music behind it and an inspirational guide for the day. So it's like, that kind of helped me to sit in the silence a little. Going to the ocean, going to the woods. Like, there's never actually complete silence. So taking like some relaxing, peaceful places and putting him in the place of the chaos. I think I definitely had to do that. And how do we talk to men about that? Because I think, for better or worse, I think we have gender roles, we have these stereotypes, and men, you just said it earlier, we're not good with emotion. So how do we get to the point where we can at least discuss these things?
That's a great question, and I'll share from my point of view, my perspective as a male, that one of the early things I remember hearing in sobriety was change of thought, move a muscle. So like, when I'm sitting there in dead space, or something's popping in my head that shouldn't be,
right?
Especially early in sobriety, that always helped me. It's like, change of thought, move a muscle. Get up, do something physical, pick up the phone, make a phone call.
Yeah.
And I think that is the key in early recovery for males, is that lifting that 2,000-pound phone to reach out and make that phone call. And
knowing that having a thought doesn't mean failure.
Exactly. And knowing that the person on the other end of that phone understands exactly what you're going through, and is helping them just to talk to you about their situation and how they went and felt when they were in early recovery, which gives you a little more relief and understanding that you're not alone. And so the cycle continues, and I think that's important. I had a friend call me once. He talked about using marijuana, and he wanted me to know that he wanted to share it with me. And he was sober for 2 or 3 years, and he felt really guilty that he thought about using marijuana. And he told his wife, who was very angry at him, that he thought about using marijuana. I'm like, bless you for talking about this. And I would tell you, I would say if I was talking to your wife, who I know, I would say, hey, it's healthy for him to do that. At least he told you that he was thinking about
Absolutely.
using that's going to help him in the long run.
And, I've heard it said, like, a pigeon can land on your head. It doesn't mean you have to let him build a nest. Right? Like you can swat those things away. You may not be able to control the thought coming in, but you can control it becoming implanted.
Yeah.
And taking charge of your thoughts and doing something else and just saying, this doesn't have to control me, can be a really, I think it's a coping skill, right? But it also puts you back in control.
Yeah.
And in the driver's seat. And I think so much of the time that's what we're looking for, is just that sense of, I can control a little bit, right? We're not going to be able to control the big things, but some of those small things, we can move the muscle, right?
Yes.
And taking the thought and giving it to somebody else keeps it from becoming an action.
Oh, that's good.
So it's like you're giving it to someone else, you're putting light on it. And I mean, that way it doesn't be, a thought can go around a million times in your head and eventually become an action.
And so how do we talk to loved ones and be like, you don't have to be scared that I'm going to go back to active addiction because I have a craving, or because I do occasionally have some stuff I got to work through.
That's why I have a sponsor. So I tell my sponsor instead of my sister,
Yeah.
So she doesn't want to jump out a window. So it's like, that's why we have that recovery family. You get rid of all that there. I think that's kind of how I use it.
What do you think?
I like that. I have a few people I bounce ideas and thoughts off of before I tell my girlfriend or loved ones. But again, my thing is honesty is the key to everything. It's like, if I'm being honest and I'm really putting out there what I'm saying or what I'm feeling or what I'm struggling with, respect that. And also, I think it might be an opportunity for me to grow too. And learn from, why am I feeling that way? Why am I craving something? Or why am I thinking about doing something?
And it's an opportunity as a couple or as a family to maybe get some help, get a third party, get some so to understand the family portion of the recovery, right?
Yeah.
And that this is a normal thing, and it doesn't always mean that they're going to go right back to active addiction.
Correct.
True.
I think it's a process for everybody. What's some more coping skills? Let's talk about that some more. Unpack that.
I love, I think besides the IPSIs, which is a really helpful one, music is so important in my life now that I don't think in my active addiction or alcohol, or use, I think I took it for granted, music in general. So I use music now as multifaceted to pick me up, bring me down.
Are there times where the type of music has to change? Maybe it's a trigger for someone. What if they say, hey, a lot of people say it wasn't the substance for me, it was the music that led to maybe all of that. How do you incorporate that same thing in a different way?
That's a great point. I actually try to get people thinking about my groups before they leave treatment to get a sober song in their head.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that's not easy, and I think it's it's hard to do, especially when we don't have a catalog of music right in front of them. But it's something I try to I have a sober song. I have a song that helped me early in sobriety that to this day when I hear it just picks me right up.
Will you share it with us?
Sure. It's called it's a song by. It's pretty funny because it's by the Grateful Dead, which a lot of people would say, "How can you have
How
a
can
song?"
that be your sober song?
And it's amazing. I've got a unique story behind this. If you have a little time, I can tell you. So the song's called Wharf Rat, and it's about someone being way down on the in their life and picking themselves up. And one of the lines is, "I'll get up and fly away," meaning I'll lift my spirits and I'll get over I'll grow from this. So for about 13 years of my sobriety, I thought I was the only human being that used that song to help keep motivated in sobriety. And I'm reading about it. I named my dog Og West for one of the characters in the song, which is August West, which they sing about. And so I named my dog Og West. And anyway, 13 years into my sobriety, I'm researching it for some. I think I was doing a journal about the character Og West or Jerry Garcia or something, and I found out that there's. And I've been going to Dead Company shows, not Grateful Dead. They were Jerry already passed, but I still go to shows back then. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know that they had a group of people at these shows for sober people called the Wharf Rats.
Oh my God!
Which is the name of my song, the name of the song. And they were so the very next time I went to a Dead and Company show, I followed the yellow balloons, and it was a bunch of sober people out of tent, giving out.
So the yellow balloons represent to them
the yellow brick road,
the Wharf Rats, and the sober people there, which is kind of unique because I'm hearing more about venues having sober sections and things, which is kind of exciting to hear about.
Very exciting. Just reducing that stigma.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's exactly.
And letting people know, and I think that's what's so important about alumni is, and what we do as the Alumni Association of RCA is just creating sober opportunities for fellowship and getting out in our communities and letting people know there is fun in recovery and
a lot of fun.
Yeah,
that's important. Yeah. Marty,
yes,
you've got a great sober song. Will
you
talk us through that?
Yeah. Well, I was a musician before I got sober, so that was my walk in life. And I write a lot of music. I've written music since I was in high school. It was like my therapy for myself. And when I got sober, I was still a musician. I was still playing out and doing gigs and stuff like that. And I was really...
And that can be really tough.
Oh, yeah. That was scary.
Talk about a musician's life who opts to be sober.
Yeah. So it was really, there were two things that really scared me about it. One was that I didn't think I'd ever be able to write another song. Because I thought...
The creative energy.
Yes, because I thought my creative energy came from substances. That was like, I need to do this to do that. And so I thought writing was over, and I didn't think I would sound right, and I didn't think I'd have the ability to play in front of people.
That you couldn't perform sober.
Exactly. So my first sober gig was actually while I was in treatment. So I was in a PHP program, and I had to do this this gig, and I'm like, I was terrified, and I went and did it. I had some, my family came and supported me and stuff like that. But I had people come up to me afterwards and say, "Wow, you really sounded extra great tonight," and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, really? I'm like, it was shocking to me. Wow. It was shocking. I did come out of that business because, that business is just revolved around alcohol and partying and stuff like that. And then I came into the recovery business, and I ended up starting to write songs for a women in recovery celebration that we used to have every year. And I wrote a song called Rising Up. And it was, I call it my God song. I don't even take credit for it. It just kind of came in me and out me. And we actually recorded it in a studio for us. We sold the singles for the program that I was running at the time for women and children with domestic violence and substance abuse. So that's kind of, so I found out that I could write even better, and my songs were not so dark, and they were much lighter and more present. Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much. And Marty has agreed to let us play her song for the listeners today. Oh. So we will end today's program with Rising Up by Marty Dunphy. And we're so excited to get to share this song with you. And if anyone needs help today, please reach out. Call 1-833-RCA-ALUM, RCA-ALUM, and get help. Reach out to Peter, reach out to our alumni team, reach out to Marty. These are people who are standing by, ready to get you the help that you need. And maybe that doesn't look like inpatient treatment, but maybe it looks like a sober fellowship. And that is available to you through Recovery Centers of America. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us today. And let's listen to Rising Up.
Well, I started out just having fun. I was making it okay, and everyone was moving on. All that I could do is stay. I could never see how I could be just like everybody else. No, I needed something they can't understand. Never fail. I'm rising up, walking through the fire, grabbing on to the hands reaching out for me. I've had enough of giving up all the dreams I have inside. I'm taking wings, I'm rising up. Well, the crazy nights, forgotten fights, God would know what else. All the times I woke up somewhere between here and only hell. I spent many years excusing, blaming all this off on you, till I took a look inside, saw this poison shooting through. I'm rising up, walking through the fire, grabbing on to the hands reaching out for me. I've had enough of giving up all the dreams I have inside. I'm taking wings, I'm rising up. Now I take back my life, I live it every day. I know that I have got a choice, I can do it either way. Oh, but I believe I wouldn't last another day the way it was. So I choose to stand up strong. Bless this woman I become. Walking through the fire, grabbing on to the hands reaching out for me. I've had enough of giving up all the dreams I have inside. I'm taking wings, I'm rising up.
Thank you for listening to the Strength and Recovery podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please tap the subscribe button and leave us a review. We love hearing from our listeners and hope to reach more of you out there as we continue to share these incredible stories of recovery. The RCA alumni team aims to provide a safe, supportive environment for those in the recovery community, regardless of their affiliation with RCA. We host a full calendar of virtual and in-person meetings 7 days a week, 365 days a year, as well as free sober events every month. To learn more about what we do, find us at rcaalumni.com. Remember, if you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, pick up the phone and dial 1-833-RCA-ALUM. Help is available 24/7. Listen to another episode now or join us next time for the Strength and Recovery podcast.